Hi everybody, it's Peps, and today we have the Gold Coast 2022 season preview. Will it finally be the year that the Suns shine like Katut and Rhonda always wanted it to, or will it be another dreary winter over the skies of the coast? Look, I can't answer that question, but I tell you what, we have got the world-class aficionado when it comes to the Gold Coast Suns. The terrifying, the tornado, the sensational Thom Roker. Welcome to Lace Out.
G'day, Peps. Thanks for having me.
Mate, what's going on with the Gold Coast? Because we just said this before we started today. I think Gold Coast would be close to everybody's second or third favourite team because we just want to see some success. Now, GWS have had theirs, but we just want to see the Gold Coast shine. They deserve to shine. They've had so many years where they've been pulled apart, raped and pillaged by other clubs, and enough is enough. What are we looking for season 22? Give us the insights.
Well, I can answer the question that everyone thinks they know the answer to. If you remember back in the draft in 2018, the Suns had pick 2, pick 3, and pick 6. And they picked up 2 attacking players and 1 defender. And that defender just did his ACL. So they never planned for Ben King to be a full forward. It's just the way it worked out. They planned for Jack Lukosius to be that goal-kicking centre-half forward and to be goal assisting, more importantly. So that's the big change this year. Jack Lukosius will not be playing in the back line. He may be sort of a bit of a Nick Rewald kind of playing up the wings, but he'll be a forward and he'll be kicking goals or giving that beautiful delivery inside 50 to guys like Isaac Rankin, who, you know, he had a little bit of a form slump last year because he was very close to be marked. But really, if he's getting service, he's going to kick 3 or 4 goals a week. Rankin, and Lukosius wouldn't be far off that as well. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. Getting Jared Witts back, seeing Took as the captain this year. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. But as with every team, at the start of the year, one of the questions is, you know, which player can we least afford to lose? And for a lot of people, that's Ben King. Last year it was Jared Witts, so he's back. So you know the value of having an elite ruckman, and Witts is up there. You know, Witts is up there. He's not exactly Maxi Gorn in the field play, but he's one of the best tap ruckmen. So that'll sort us out.
Well, it's not just that. It'd be nice just to see a fully fit Gold Coast Suns have a crack at it. I've had a chat to Wazza King from the West Coast, the Eagle Nation podcast. West Coast have been decimated. I think at one stage you've got 24 players that are fit. 24, and you can have 23 picked every week. Fremantle last year, decimated.
They might have to call off their preseason game if they have 2 injuries.
Well, I said if they can get to 14, that's the least amount you can have on the field at one time is 14. And so if they get down to that, we might get phone calls, Tommy. That's how bad they're getting. But Ben King,
they're going to be full for the games.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get that bad, but it's just a shame. Like to see you guys. You said Witts 1 year, then it's Rowell. Now it's Ben King. It's like, is it ever going to stop? And if it's going to stop, then those players will leave. Like that's the frustrating thing, I think, from a lot of the Southern supporters is, you know, a Gold Coast going to fold? Are they going to move them on? They're not going to go anywhere. The AFL have invested way too much into this. And it was just bad luck that's occurred in the last couple of seasons. I know they haven't been winning games, but you know, GWS weren't that flash for a long time. But they've picked themselves up. You know, and if you look at all the players that have left Gold Coast, they can make their own premiership team up themselves. That's how devastating it's been for that mob
It's
up
not
there.
actually quite that bad. A lot of people sort of can't quite believe how many good players have left. But I think you've got to take into consideration that some of them just weren't good for the team. I mean, Tom Lynch, he had a laundry list of demands, wanted millions and wanted to be captain, and he still, while he was captain, he was having his knee operation in Melbourne and meeting up with Collingwood and Richmond behind the Suns' back as the captain. Stephen May waited until the end of the year, but he had his own issues with his personal life and excuse me, his personal life and whatnot, and had to go. And Jack Martin came when he was 17. There's a reason that you're not allowed to have 17-year-olds, and we got Jager O'Meara and Jack Martin when they were too young. I mean, it worked with Davey Swallow. If you remember, he was always going to be the number one draft pick, and the Suns got permission to bring him over a year early and play him in the year before they joined the comp. So it worked with him. So they thought it was going to work with the others. So there's always reasons, and then if you give it a few years, the draft picks you got for trading out these guys are coming good. So I think the rebuild's complete, and we're going to start to see results this year. And I'll tell you why I'm optimistic. I'm not going to suggest finals because we just don't know how the year's going to pan out. I mean, it might take 13 wins to make finals, or it could take 11.
Geez, you've gone early, Tom. Like we usually wait to the end of the podcast for the predictions, but you've gone early. Potentially, there could be finals action.
Well, I want to ask you this question: who's your bottom six?
Bottom six?
The top teams. Who are the bottom teams for you?
Okay, so you've got me a week early with my ladder. The top half is probably the easiest from my perspective.
Yeah.
All right,
but we could say North.
All right, so I'll say, and I'm just having a look at the ladder from last year because that always gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on. But if I had to say who my bottom six would be, all right, if I go from this bottom six from last year and I'll see if they're going to be in there or not. Okay. North, yes, but they won't be bottom. Collingwood, not sure. Gold Coast, I would have put you in the bottom six at the moment, right? Adelaide, most definitely. Hawthorn, most definitely.
Yep.
Carlton, probably not. From what I've seen. Richmond, definitely not. Fremantle, geez, if they get their list together, they're in a good shape. St Kilda, I can see them going down, and West Coast I can see going down. Then you've got your top eight.
They're got to be in there. Well, if we say West Coast is the other one, the Gold Coast out of those 5 teams have 9 games. 9 games against the bottom 5 teams besides the Gold Coast.
So
it's a lot.
That's 40% of your season, pretty much.
And then another 5 games against teams who didn't make the top 8.
Yep.
4 teams against because we're one of them. So it's you're only looking at 9 games against top 8 teams from last year, and it's the easiest schedule of the lot. So this is the year, Peps, because we go to Optus Oval for the first round.
Yep.
And that could be a bloodbath. I mean, the Suns are playing well. They knocked over.
I'm actually picking you for that game. First game of the year. You've got that. That's probably one of the easiest betting games. And I don't gamble, but because gambling responsibly. But just looking at the 2 teams, I have more faith in you winning that than West Coast at the moment.
Well,
massively.
I can tell you now the betting markets. I'm not a gambler either, but the betting markets after that match last week when they had all those injuries and they announced, the Gold Coast were $4 outsiders and it came into $2.50, and it came in overnight to $2.50. So I had a chat
to the Fremantle guys, and they said the same thing. The Fremantle guys said, just whoever's playing for against West Coast, just put your house on it at the moment because they couldn't win. They couldn't win a thing. They couldn't even win a race up the race against themselves. They're that injury prone. They're bottom four in my book. They're aging, etc. But I want to talk about your list at the moment because here's a couple of key things that you may or may not know. So you did go 7-15 last year. All right. You had the worst percentage outside of North Melbourne. And that's my other concern is that if you had the worst percentage outside of North Melbourne and the guy that led your goal kicking is now out for the season, where the goal's going to come from, but you've already mentioned somebody who's going to be looking after that. You have only 2 players over the age of 30, okay, which is brilliant, okay. The other thing that surprised me is that you've only got 11 people who have played more than 100 games. Geelong have more people over the age of 30 than you do who have played 100 games. Like, that just goes to show the spread between the two. You're the 17th youngest team. Sorry, 17th ranked for experience, 15th youngest team. You've got the least Brownlow votes in the comp, but that's understandable. When that doesn't mean anything. And you're ranking 17th for goals. So, the statistical analysis says that it's not on your side, but statistical analysis always has to change, doesn't it? There has to be a shift at some time of the year. And there's one guy that I think I cannot speak highly enough of him. You've listened during the year, Touk Miller. My goodness, he's a guy that I watch, and he bleeds yellow and red for that club, and I love it. I love it. He's get on my back, boys. I'm having a crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does he mean for that club?
He is the best two-way player in the comp because he gets up, he gets down, and you can train it. You can, we used to have Aaron Hall, who was a one-way player. North have done a brilliant thing by sticking him in the back line. Anyway, he can only go one way. But Touk, he's run down tackles and pressure acts. And when he's got the ball, well, what is he set the all-time record for the most consecutive games of over 30 possessions. And I can tell you, he got more than 30 in the scratch match the other day. So, he's just gonna pick up where he left off. I thought he was ripped off with the Brownlow because he got suspended for that one game. And do you remember what it was for?
I can't remember.
There was this stupid little melee at half time against St Kilda, and Touk was just in there pulling guys apart. He was taking the lead on it. I think it was Dan Butler charged at Shawnee Lemons, and Shaun Lemons just dropped his shoulder and picked him up and put him on his bum. I thought Shaun Lemons was going to get a week off, but apparently they thought that was funny. But yeah, they didn't show the actual footage of Touk. Like, he didn't hit anyone. It was just unsportsmanlike conduct or something. I think he might have jumper slung someone. It was just dumb, and they didn't challenge it. So I felt like the umpires gave him one vote, best and fairest, and he got suspended. I mean, just ridiculous. So I think after that, the umpires, if they know that a player's not going to feature in the Brownlow count, they don't tend to give him votes. He got votes in every other competition, except for the Brownlow.
And the thing is, like, he just runs. He's clean. He just doesn't stop running. Even I remember when Melbourne played Gold Coast last year, and it was a massacre. There was only one person who just stood out that was having a crack, and it was him. And I can understand when you're playing against, at that stage, the best team in the comp, you're getting smashed, your confidence goes completely out the door. But he just kept going, and you've got, I think I just counted it up. I think it's something like 14 first-round draft picks. It could actually be more. I'll do the number again. But, you've got names like Rowell, Lacasius, Anderson, Sam Day, Rankin, Ainsworth, Mac Andrew, who Melbourne had their eyes on for a long time. Obviously, Ben King is out, which is disappointing. Elijah Hollins, Jack Bowles, Sam Flanders, Lockie Wally, if you remember, Brandon Ellis, even though he is an older player, still was a first-round pick. Will Plough. People forget about Fiorini as well. There's so much talent on their list. Is Stewie Dew, is he the right man? Is he the right man to extract this talent and take them to that next level? Because I know there's a guy sniffing around out there, And we know who he is because he's been booted from Hawthorn, who is having his eye thinking, I could do something with this. But is Stewie the right man in your eyes?
Okay, so what Stuart Dew's got going for him? He won a premiership with Port, come out of retirement, basically won that flag for the Hawks in 2008. So he's done it as a player. He then went and, as a very young assistant coach at the Swans and learnt the Bloods way. And we talked about this last year. He was quietly offered the Demons job, and he knocked it back because he wanted to create something. He didn't want to be handed over a roosie team. So he could be sitting there as a premiership coach right now instead of a wooden spoon coach. But you can't reward 5 years of mediocrity, or less than mediocrity, really. I will say this though: last year, 7 and 15 doesn't sound real good, but in a lot of years that would have finished you a bit higher up the ladder.
Yeah,
the team had 7 games with a margin of less than 2 goals and only won 2 of them.
So now that's the thing that you got to hang your hat on as well, is those sort of things. Because if you turn that 2 and 5 the other way around, make that 5 and 2, you end up on 10 wins, and now you're sitting a game and percentage outside the 8.
Well, look, two more goals, or a 2-goal difference in each of those games, and we're in the finals. So 10 goals away from finals. I mean, it's a big stretch. I'm not saying they were a finals team. And the other thing, Peps, is the Suns played 7 games at Metricon last year and 15 games away. It was the worst COVID. The year before, they had lots of home games and all this. Although the year before they were sent all around the country unnecessarily, I thought the AFL sort of overcompensated by sort of saying, "Oh, well, if everything's going to be on the Gold Coast, we'll send the Suns to Darwin, or we'll send them to Melbourne, make them play in Brisbane." It was weird. They got at one point sent to Wollongong, but they still had a lot of home games. But you see, you can't really complain. But at the same time, there's improvement. They went 3 wins, they went 5.5 wins, they went 7 wins. And so I kind of feel like if Stuart Dew gets to that 10 wins, they're going to keep him and they're going to give him some sort of support. Now, I don't know about you, but I've only ever seen that Clarko and Dewey love each other. They're good mates. Clarko's first gig as a coach after he retired as a player was Sandford with Centrals, right?
Yep.
And Stewie Dew had a bit of a blip in his career at that time. He was pretty young, and he played most of that season for Centrals and actually played for Clarko in that grand final, the Sandford grand final, and they won. And then 4 years later, Clarko's the assistant at Port to Choco, and then 4 years. So that's 3 flags that they won together in 3 different teams. I've heard a few commentators suggest this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Clarko was sort of had a new role created for him and they restructured their footy department and went, righto, Stewie, you're still coaching, but we'll take a few responsibilities off you, make you a bit more hands-on.
Yes.
And that way you get to keep a lot of those players who might be thinking, well, new coach, I'm out of here. It's delicate. It's very delicate.
It is. There's a fine line between pleasure and pain. He's built up these relationships. Yeah, we'll get this new guy in, but they may not want him. People like Rowell, Rankin, Anderson, these guys, Ben King. Ben King apparently really loves Dew up there. And he's like, I don't really want to do anything. Now, before we go into that, inside word on King. Have you got anything for us? What have you heard? Because it's down here, he's joining St Kilda. I don't know why he'd want to join St Kilda. They're out the window. What are you hearing from up there behind the Twitter sphere up there on the Golden Sands of the Gold Coast about Mr. King?
Well, we know he's a twin, and we know that he'd never ever lived away from home, and he'd never been separated from his brother. And so it wasn't really surprising to me that he became he was already friends with Jack Lukosius because they're in academy stuff together and they played against each other in the national championships. Remember when we used to have those? The two of them set up a little pad together where they live. They are quite intelligent fellows. They're like on the Sun's website. They do like movie reviews.
Yep.
And they're quite. They're not exactly introverted. They're just nothing much faces them.
They're just different. They're just their own individuals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Of each other's company. What more could you ask for?
Like their Insta is just them at the beach, them at restaurants, and just having the best time. Like you read the reports and say, oh, he's not happy, or he's St Kilda talks to his agent every fortnight, this and that. Ben King, the only thing that Ben King really says about it is that he's just really disappointed that the Melbourne media, when he's so early in his career,
yes,
the speculation now, like maybe after the free agency in 4 years is when he would consider going down there, but he's just he's going to get the extension. It's just a matter of they've put something on the table. His manager's got to go through it. It's going to be a lot of money. Like they very, very roundly criticised for moving on Will Brodie. He's probably going to be a star for Freo. And in that midfield, he probably takes over Monday eventually, and good luck to them. And we had to give him pick 19 as well. But he was owed $650,000 because the Suns in the COVID season, the Suns didn't knock 20% off everyone's salary. A lot of other clubs did.
Yeah,
the Suns pushed it, the back ended everybody, and so for the Suns to be able to get enough money to be able to pay Rankin, Kocius, King, Took's already been extended. Although Took's got ambassador money, right? He's a multicultural ambassador. That's
no
big,
issue with that.
That's big bickies. That's the AFL invented that for bloody Gary Ablett, right?
It's the new cola.
It's bloody massive amounts of money, and I think a lot of teams get it. I mean, it's how teams with a big superstar afford it.
Wow.
So
Chris Judd and Vizzy. Do we need to go any further with that one?
so there you have it. There's a lot more to it, but the Suns really got their salary cap down for this year, so they can blow it out of proportion next year and be front-ending these guys. And that, so the kids want some money now. Give them their $1 million next year. They could put each of those guys on $1 million next year, and then be paying them, $600 a year for a few years after that. So that's where that is. And then I know you're going to ask the question, so I won't go into the other player that helped him save some money. Darcy McPherson, they couldn't trade him, but he was on big money, so they smoothed out his contract and gave him an extra year. So instead of paying him $500,000 a year for 2 years, they're now paying him $300 odd for 3 years with incentives.
Yeah, smart. But that's smart business. That's smart business. They get dedication. They get to spend the money a little bit. It makes it a bit easier. Everybody wins.
Absolutely.
Elijah, I do have to ask though. I'm going to ask though. We're talking about contracts here.
Yes. Well, I'm ready for you.
All right. How the hell did they stuff up the Hugh Greenwood one?
Yeah. I mean, it's egg on the face material. But
you could have picked you could have gone and picked James Tsousias, who has not played a game for your club. You could have picked, who else have we got here? Elijah Hoylands. You could have picked Wes Nichols. You could have picked anybody, but you go, oh no, we'll put.
I'll tell you the stark truth here. Now they didn't. They knew it could happen. They knew it could happen, but there's a bit more to the story. So he was on $400,000 a year, and he only had 1 year guaranteed.
Yeah,
and he's pushing 30, and he wanted that second year, so he went to North. And North offered him $500 a year for 2 years with an option on a third year. Right? Now, let's look at the history of this bloke. He came up through the junior system, stopped playing AFL when he was a teenager, and went and played basketball in New Mexico. And he had a pretty good college career, and there were teams who were trying him out for the end. So he was a big deal. And he was in the Boomers, and he came to Australia, and he signed up with Perth Wildcats.
Yep.
And they were all ready to announce it as a big signing, you know, because they're a big club. And then Adelaide swooped in. Well, guess who was the football manager at Adelaide when Greenwood switched? John.
No
Noble.
idea.
Not John Noble. David Noble. John Noble's the Collingwood player. David Noble. So David Noble has known Hugh Greenwood's family forever, before Hugh was even born.
Yeah.
And the Greenwoods and the Nobles are both from Tassie. They're close. So Greenwood goes and plays a year of Sandford, relearns how to play the game, and then gets up to stand with the Crows. Noble goes to Brisbane. Greenwood was going to follow him to Brisbane, but the Suns deal got made instead. So Suns, you know, good on them. They win that deal.
Yep.
So when he gets delisted, which was stupid rule from the AFL that they just sort of brought in and went, oh yeah, you know, last year we didn't have, you only had to get delist one player maximum. This year it's got to be 3. And so they're sitting there and they're going, okay, well, we've got Rory Thompson as a player for 23 years, but he's contracted, so we'll delist him, but he knows we'll pick his contract back up because we're not paying someone to not play, although we have been. And then young Jez McLennan, he's a first round draft pick, and he didn't. He was the last pick in the draft, and they traded up to get him. And in the end, all the picks they traded to get him is like a cost a fortune, and he hasn't bloody played. But that's bad luck. Hopefully he gets a game this year, but maybe he's just one of those guys who never makes it. Anyway, back to Hugh Greenwood. David Noble gets on the blower to him and says, "Mate, we'll have you in North Melbourne, and you get to play games in Tassie, where you're from, and we'll give you more money." Blah, blah, blah. So that happened. But I want to bring to your attention Hugh Greenwood's statistics. Like, what do you know him for?
So I don't see him as he's not a dominator. He's not going to be the main man down there. But I think that he was nice. He was a bigger body for that midfield in Gold Coast. Like, he was no Rowell. He was no Anderson. He's no Rankin. He's no Ainsworth. He's no Fear. Like, you know what I mean? He's not top tier anymore.
Yeah.
But he was a bigger body to take the impact to allow these guys to grow. That's how I saw him. And absolutely. I just thought it was a bit – I can understand why I think it was a bit dodge to come out and say, hey, I'm going to stay, but then this deal must have been too good. And I think that's the things that people don't know, realise that the deal was too good. You know, if they're going to give you $400,000 for one, some mob's saying, we'll give you $500 for 2 and then maybe another one for 3. Like, 400 compared to $1 million? I don't know anybody who would turn that down, guaranteed money. So even from the statistical perspective, like he was generating, but I didn't see him as the accumulator. I'd see him as just like I said, a bigger vessel to be able to get in and support the younger guys. That's how I saw him, and I think you might have been able to pick that up with a couple that you've picked up in last year's trade period as well too. So there might be some sort of you lose one, but you get some others as well.
Well, Alex Davies he's been regarded as the best product to come through the academy, and you just haven't seen him because he only played the one game at the end of last year, and he's sort of one of those guys who suffered a bit from the COVID for the juniors. He although you could play in Queensland in his draft year, he got injured early on, and he wrapped him in cotton wool and said, the Suns are gonna pick you. So he didn't go in the draft because they got to pre-list him. But the AFL turned around and said, hang on a second, he's rated first round. you guys have to. You can't put him on your rookie list. You have to make a list spot available for him. So,
Oh, you mean the AFL just decided to just change the rules? They don't do that. They don't just make stuff up on the fly.
So he's regarded as a first-round pick, and the first thing that Hugh Greenwood did after he rang the club and said, "Look, I'm going north," he rang young Alex Davies and said, "This kid, the spot's yours." I've been looking over my shoulder. They work together. At the end of the day, Greenwood's a mercenary, and he's gone for the money, but there's no one coming up on his shoulder at North. He'll just slot into that team. Yep. I don't even know if he's going to play a lot because his knee's buggered, but that's the other thing. But what is Alex Davies? Well, he's the same size as Greenwood. He's a contested beast, so he'll get in there and win clearances. He's a tackling machine, so he'll he might not be getting Greenwood's numbers of clearances and tackles straight up, but give him a year, maybe. But,
he's 191 and 85 kegs, and that's according to the draftguru.com.au. So, you think that he's put on a couple since then. So
he's 90 kegs now and 192. Yeah. So, big boy. He's sort of a bit of a Bontempelli, Paddy Cripps kind of player. His mum's Japanese, so he's very distinctive looking. But he's fast. He's fast. He banged a set shot out from 60 metres last week, and it went straight through the guts. And it was after the siren. It was only quarter time, but it was after the siren. So, he just sweats bloody ice cubes, this kid. So there's that. The big knock on Greenwood, apart from he doesn't get the ball a whole lot, is his accuracy. So he'd get in there, he'd win the clearance, and he'd pass it straight to an opposition player, and they'd be off. And you'd just be like,
every team's got their coach killer. Every team's got their coach killer.
He actually has the poorest accuracy over the sample size of any AFL player. He's never complete. He's like, you got your Mason Cox, and you've got these project guys who they're brilliant at what they're good at, but they're not the complete player because they didn't get developed. So he's got his flaws. So yeah, we'll miss him because he was that placeholder. You can pick a mature body and bring the young fellas along. But the fact is, we don't have him, and we've got his $400,000 to give to Tuke, and we re-signed Tuke. So easy decision in the end. Didn't have to do anything better.
Now, I've got to ask you about a couple of players because they've come up to the club this year. Where are they sort of fitting in? Are they going to make a difference to you? So I'll just go through some names. Mabol Choi, how's he tracking at the moment up there?
Oh, Marbs. Well, he's a refugee, right? So his family settled in halfway between, a bit closer to Brisbane than Gold Coast, but on the southern side of the city. In Brizzy, so only like 45 minutes up the car park, we call it, the M1 car park, because it's always 20 k's an hour. But he's coming home. He was a Brisbane Lions academy player. They chose not to go with him. The bloody Richmond love their Brisbane players. They've got 4 of them, 4 academy players on their list. Anyway, they've only got 3 now because the son's got Chol. He will replace 80% of King's output. He'll score goals because he's a big boy and he kicks them straight.
Yep.
He was replacing Lynch and Rewald for years, and couldn't crack it in because he was behind them.
Well, so, it might be that opportunity that because King goes down, it's like awesome. And then you got someone like Oleg Markov who hasn't. He had himself, I think, an injury. He's been able to come back and hopefully be able to just, get some more game time. He's only 25, so you got some youth there as well too. You bring in Charlie Constable as well.
You know who his dad is? Markov's parents are?
No.
They're Belarusian pole vaulters who defected to Australia when he was a baby. Dmitry Markov was the world champion pole vaulter.
Dmitry Markov, that's his dad.
That's his dad. So he's
Look that one up on YouTube, people. That'll blow your mind. It was an absolute gun. I didn't even think.
He had the highest jump in the world. I think he's one of the 5 guys who've jumped over 6 metres or over a certain height. He would have won the Olympics 20 times at any other Olympics, but he didn't. But anyway, he was clocked as the second fastest player in the AFL last year. And Nick Hind was clocked higher. I reckon if you put them both in a foot race, not like that rubbish race they had at the grand final.
Oh, the grand final sprint.
The cold.
Give him a proper, put a footy out in front of the both of them, and the first one to get it. That's the way it should be. Make it realistic.
Yeah. So he comes off the back line. There was a game against North Melbourne in round 2, and Legs runs it out of forward 50, passes it, and then Took gets involved. And you can see Legs coming up on his left, but Took goes inside, and Oleg just keeps running. And then they see him running into forward 50. They pass it to him, and he's kicked a goal coast to coast, and he's handled it like 3 times in the movement. I mean, you get him doing that kind of stuff, and he works quite well with Sean Lemons and Lockie Weller back there. Without him, we were getting flogged. He was injured for the last part of the year. Oleg is a big part of that Fest 22.
I tell you, there's another guy floating around for you who you watch him play and you think, why, especially in the last year or two, I don't know if he was off his game or he just fell out of Stewie. Alex Sexton. Like, this is a guy who, when he kicks a goal, that usually leads on to 2 or 3 a game.
Yeah.
Ever so consistent. I know there'd be a lot of teams in Melbourne that would love him, even around the country that would love him. He's almost like a new type of Jack Gunston. Like, you can always rely on him chipping in for a couple. What happened in the last year or two? Because it seemed that he was on the sidelines for a bit. He was the medical sub for a bit. And when Gold Coast needed goal kickers, he wasn't getting a game.
Yeah, he had groin problems. So it was the kind of thing that you got to play through it. I mean, you've played a lot of footy. You know that there's injuries that will keep you out, and injuries that players get that they're going to need surgery on right away, so they can rehab and get back for the next year. His problems weren't that bad, but it got to the end of the year, and he's playing 70% of his capacity, still kicking a few goals. But I think he had a year where he kicked 40 goals, and the year before that it was 28. So where are the goals coming from? Well, Secco, if he can get back into that 22, because there's a bit of competition. You've got Elijah Hollands, he's a midfield/forward. Sam Flanders, same deal. Nick Holman's, he's got so much passion, and he hits so hard and he tackles like crazy. And if we need a tagger, he's there. So, and then there's
Josh Corbett's another one as well too that caught my eye last year as well. I remember a game against Collingwood at the G. I think he almost had a day out. I think he kicked 4 that day. It was like, well, where's this coming from?
Well, he had
Ronnie Corbett, and he's not a small one either. He's 190 and 90 kicks, so he's a big unit. So you have him and Choi down there. That's 2 big bodies that defenders are going to have to look out for.
Yeah, his defence. The other thing with Corbett is he runs. He runs more than any other Gold Coast player. So if you need a relieving mark out on the wing, he's out there. They picked him up. You remember a few years ago the Suns and the Blues got given a concession where they could go and get any tier 2 players, and there wasn't any order to it. There was just open slather.
They could pick anybody up in the secondary competitions, basically. Yeah.
But Carlton's build at that time was a bit different. They didn't want a couple of promising 23-year-olds. They wanted the draft picks.
Yeah.
So they could trade them. So Carlton went and got the young Mitch McGovern. Yep. So they traded out a player to Adelaide for a pick and got Mitch McGovern in that deal. And the other one was Nathan Kruger, who they traded with Geelong for, and they got another player in. Anyway, so I picked up Josh Corbett and Sam Collins in the defence. I mean, Sam Collins is...
Two good picks there. You can't argue with those two.
He's knocking on all Australian door. If it wasn't for blokes like Stephen May and Jack Lever, he's not far behind them.
He is so solid. Like, once again, that's why I love watching the Gold Coast, because they're just so young. And Collins doesn't get beat that often, but what I love is his character, that if he does get beaten, he pushes himself, he cracks it with himself, but then he'll go back for the next one. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. And that's what you want from your big boys down back. You want them to have that never die. You're not going to beat me one-on-one.
Yeah, and he's twice captain. He marshals the troops down there. He basically, he basically says, "Radio, you need to be there. I've got this zone here in the middle." And all they're missing, and you wouldn't want to do this every game, but Melbourne's got this defence with the three big fellas back there, right? So if it's not May, it's Lever, and if it's neither of them, it's Petty. Although you guys get back Tomlinson, right? So your list is structured so you've always got three talls, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out because the opposition might have a smaller forward line and they sort of run a rings around you. But if the Suns can get back Rory Thompson, who's a foundation player, Rory. The second last game Roy Thompson played was on Lance Franklin, but he kicked 0 goals. This is the kind of lockdown defender that Roy Thompson is, and he would just unleash Sammy Collins because he'd just go to the Kennedys or Franklins and just lock arms with them and just wrestle them all day, and they're not going to get as many goals on Rory as they would on, say, Charlie Ballard, who's very good, but again, Charlie Ballard, you want him on your second or third tall, and you want him to be able to sort of, he's very good at reading the ball in flight, so he's going to take a lot of marks back there. Sammy Collins is going to come through and take a lot of intercept marks if they've got that third bloke, and not necessarily for every game because, as I said, some forward lines just aren't that big. But against someone like Melbourne, you need three big defenders, otherwise they're going to bath you. Because the forwards, I mean, Fritsch you don't think of him as a tall forward, but he is. And he kicked the most goals in the comp, didn't he, including the finals?
He was one behind the Coleman medalist by the end of the year, I think. He ended up 59 for the season. So, 59, which was double what he kicked the year before.
How do you mark him? How do you stop him?
I think he's... Look, honestly, and I keep saying, because people always ask me about forward lines, etc., for the Ds and that. And I don't want to take away from Gold Coast because I want to find out what your predictions for the season are. But really, when it comes to Fritchie, it's this. I spoke about it in the Melbourne podcast, which is which you can hear in the season previews as well. Is that if you're a backman going down, you've got Ben Brown, then your secondary has to take out Tom McDonald, which he's getting on a bit. So then you can always slot in a Sam Wiedemann if need be. Then you've also got to find somebody to find. Then you got somebody to play on Fritsch. But then once that's been worked out, you got to find someone to play on Spargo, Neil Bullen, and then there's this little guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, Cozzy Pickett, running around. So you have to have 6 accountable backmen because the way that they play is that if they don't mark it, it's going to come to ground, and then you're just going to have a swarm of midfielders and everybody coming through. So I don't know how you stop that, because we've seen practice games so far where it's dominated, but if it's not clicking, then they can throw down a Jackson. They could throw down a Gawn. They can throw down even Petrarca to rest down there. So there are options. But the thing that Melbourne do better than most teams is that they all push back as well too. So you're not competing against 6 backmen. You're competing against 8, 9, 10 backmen. And it makes it really hard to sort of, how do we get through? But then they know their fitness to go the other way. And that's where they won a lot of games. Wasn't in the first 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters. It was the end towards the third quarter, last quarter, where they overran teams. And so I think it's, I saw a game on the weekend where teams went really well for 3 quarters, but then they started to blow out. You can only play contested footy. You can change your game plan. Your bodies have to acclimatise to that game plan for not 1, 2, 3, for 4 quarters.
Yep,
and that's the interesting thing that I'm looking at is, can teams do that? I know Melbourne can. I know the Bulldogs can. I know Brisbane can as well. Port Adelaide, they should be able. The top 4 can. Outside of that, can anybody else go for 100 minutes playing contested football? I know they've trained for it, but training and playing are 2 different things.
Well, just a quick note about that. The Gold Coast changed up their performance department a couple of years ago, three seasons ago, and
they had to. They had to because they just were getting blown away, completely blown away.
And they basically said, look, we're going to flog you. We're taking you to New Zealand, and you're going to be running up mountains. And and the players loved it because it's bonding. Said, in these freezing conditions, and they're running. They do things like go, oh, okay, well we're going to go have dinner early, and then they'll all do their 10K run up a mountain, and they get to the thing, and then it's like, okay, we're going to go for another 10K run because you didn't do that one good enough. Things like that, and that's what the Demons had that fella. I can't remember his name right now, but he's gone off to Adelaide. But Darren
Burgess. They had to get him in because they had to push them through their mental barriers, and that's what they've done. And then the guy who's taken over has pretty much taken what Burgess has started and pushed that through. That's what a club like this needs. They need to play for each other and they need to grow together. That's why I just love what at the time of this recording, you're going to be playing Geelong tonight. I don't know what the result's going to be, but when this comes out, it'll be afterwards. We're either going to be very, very happy, or we're going to be disappointed by the result that we see, even though it's a practice match. But what a nice little teaser at home against the Cats.
The Suns will win.
Suns will win. You've heard it, everybody.
Yeah, no,
Suns are going to win.
I'm going to put my neck out because the Suns are a kind of team that they have to do well in the preseason to get their fans on side.
You do.
Other teams, like you don't care that Melbourne just lost a preseason game because it's meaningless. What you care about is did the players get through unscathed? Did some of the fringe players get a bit of a run? Who's looking to take the next step? Because no one's ever.
You are 100%. 100% on point with that.
The same team. So Melbourne needs 1 or 2 players to start round 1. And who are they going to be? And so the Suns pretty much have their. If you look at the Suns team that's playing, there's only 2 blokes who are under the age of 20. 2 under the age of 20, and they both turn 20 this month before round 1. Right? So their average age is 24.5. And the Suns have never had this. They've never had it. And without having, their 30-year-olds or whatever who all just retired, their average age is because they've got this big core of players who are 24, 25, 26, and there's no gaps. There used to be gaps. They used to have this 26 to 29 gap, and there's just no one. And now
they had to because they had to bring a lot of that experience in, and maybe they got it wrong the first time where people were topping up their supers, as they've said, for a long time. Maybe now they've got it right. They've got that age balance. Like I said, when there's more guys at Geelong who are over 30 than you have that have played 100 games, well, that's an eye-opener there.
Look at the fellas who have played 50 plus, and there's a lot more than you think. And then you look at the kind of players like Sam Collins hasn't played 100 games. He's played 40,
59.
No, that's getting up. But like he plays like he's had 100 games, and he's had 8 preseasons, and
you've got that group of kids that once they hit probably 80, so 4 seasons together, it'll spike.
Yeah,
you just got to keep them together. Because, like I said, I could run through the names here, but if I go from 78 games down to 40, all right. Now this is going to be your future: Bowles, Ainsworth, Holman, Ballard, Fiorini, McPherson, Lukosius, Collins, Powell, Ben King, Oleg Markov, Anderson, Burgess, Ronnie Corbett, as we mentioned, and Chol Rankin slots in there as well too. And then there's another guy who's virtually had 2 interrupted seasons by the name of Matt Rowell. If he can get fully fit, everybody remembers what he did in those first 3 games he played. Like he was winning the Brownlow after 3 rounds. Never been done before.
He's back to that fitness and form. His confidence got a bit battered because if you look at the 2 injuries, it's a player clattering into his back and riding him to the ground. And the first time he did the injury was how Gary Ablett left that grand final. Like he's trying to hand pass it while he's being driven forward into the ground. It's a fair tackle. I mean, maybe it's pushing the back, but actually, I think he got a free kick for it. Actually, the first time he did his
couldn't
shoulder.
do anything with it, but yeah, probably got a push in the back.
Yeah. And then the one last year was the same thing. It was a West Coast player in his first game for West Coast, Zach Langdon, and he got right into his back and rode him to the ground, and just the angle, and he's when your knee's at that kind of angle where it's loose, and he's just done his knee. Whereas now he's done 2 rehabs. He got back and played those games, but he wasn't 80%. I watched him last week, and he's breaking away. He's got that speed back, and he's so accurate. He's always doing something with the ball. So him and Anderson are starters. That's the starting midfield.
I'm looking forward to him, mate. I'm looking forward to him, watching him. I just love the way he plays. He's a footballer's footballer. All right. Really quickly, I have to ask you, who is going to be the breakout star for the Suns this year? We've seen many, many of them. Right? You've got a galaxy full of them. But who's the one that they're going to come back at the end of the year and they're going to go, shit, we did not see this one coming. But I'll tell you what, if I'd listened to Tom on the Lace Out season preview for the Gold Coast Suns, we would have heard about this. Who's the one that's got you salivating right now?
Yeah, it's hard to choose one. I mentioned Alex Davies earlier on, so I won't go on about him because I've already got him in high regard.
Oh, there's already man's crush. I can see the love in your eyes as you talk about it.
There's a young fellow by the name of Joel Jeffrey. He's the same age as Alex Davies. He's a young Indigenous boy from the NT. His old man played AFL back in the day, but not so many games. But if you think about it, in the 80s, a lot of Indigenous players they only played 40 games or something like that.
Yep.
It's a different world, and it was bloody hard because of, Collingwood. Sorry, Siri's just trying to join our conversation.
join the conversation, Siri.
Come on, Siri. Knock it off. Last year in the VFL, Joel Jeffrey kicked 9 goals in one game, and it was irresistible. I had to put him in the AFL team, and but he's 192 centimetres. He's starting to bulk out. He's got speed, and he's just that. If they have 2 tall forwards, let's say they have Levi Casbolt, we haven't mentioned him.
No, we haven't mentioned him.
If Sam they can't play, Casbolt gets a start, and Chol will be the other tall forward. You need a third tall forward who offers something different. Well, Joel Jeffrey, when he goes up for a mark, he's a potential mark of the year. Give him a car. They don't do that anymore, do they? But
they give you 5. They give you a packet of Sunny Boys, and I think a free hat from the Herald Sun. They don't give you a digital subscription though, but yeah, they're there. They don't give anything anymore.
When you spill one of those classic marks, they still say you've lost a car, dropped the car, but you don't get one. But he could win a car, as we would have said back in the day when you did win one.
I think they give you a car, but you get to use it for a year. That's it. You don't get to keep it. Yeah, I might even do that. Who cares? Like really, these days, you can take mark and goal of the year in the finals, and it doesn't count. That's how messed up it is.
Yeah. Joel Jeffrey, JJ, he's gonna he's on the fringe of the team right now because they don't want to go too young because that's been the problem. They've gone too young. They've played the kids and they got the games into them, and now they need to play the mature team and put a bit more development in the kids in the first half of the season in the VFL, and be picking the team each week on merit not on the name or the size of their contract or whether they're going to re-sign for next year or any of that. And that's going to be the secret. You're going to get guys like Alex Davies, Joel Jeffrey, who are pushing for round one, but if they don't make it, it'll be early season. Elijah Hollins, he was a number 5 draft pick. I don't know if we'll see Mac Andrew this year, but if they did decide to blood him because he's going well, because he's never played a senior game, right? Or he's played.
Doesn't matter. You've got the luxury where you don't have to play these guys. You've never had that for a long time.
It just if another big guy gets injured, another big forward gets injured, then it just could be one of those things where it's like, let's give him.
We'll give you a crack, mate. We'll chuck you down centre half back, and you can play on somebody else. Just give them a crack. Give them a taste. That's all they need.
Exactly.
Who's going to be the breakdown, Tom? Who's on their last year? Do you think? Who's Stewie going to tap on the shoulder and go, "Sorry, mate, you might have to give something else for 2023."
Yeah. Well, I'm going to name a couple of players who are in the gun for this year and next year.
Yep.
David Swallow just gave up the captaincy. Yep. And if you look at the best 22, he doesn't command. He's not the first picked, which the captain is the first pick. So it could be. And remember, his brother Andrew had a very swift demise. He went from being a captain to being the also-rans. In fact, I think it was a David Swallow tackle that pretty much ended Andrew Swallow's career.
Yeah, they don't send Christmas cards to each other, I don't think, anymore.
Andrew's up on the Gold Coast, living it up with his millions, and he was assistant coach for a while before the soft cap reduction.
Nice.
And Andrew Swallow actually played some VFL NEFL games, and he wore David Swallow's jumper. So Andrew Swallow actually did play a few games for the Suns, but they never played together. Anyway, Roy Thompson's the other one. Roy Thompson has not played for 3 years. Now, you have to go to Sydney's Alex Johnson, had the longest time out with all those bloody ACLs that he did.
Yeah.
5 weekends or something. And then he came back for 2 games and he's gone forever.
I was at the game he did his knee again. I've never heard. There was about 45,000 there that day, and it was a hush. Happened right in front of me, and it was sucked the life out of everyone at the ground because you knew straight away what had happened.
Yeah. Well, Rory did his knee in pre-season in 2019, and it was that was just one of those. It was like Ben King. Really, it was the same for the fans. We know the value. And we just lost Stephen May, I should say. So we had 2 best defenders gone. So he obviously hasn't played all that year. And then the next year is COVID, so his recovery took longer. And then he did his other knee. And he was going to come back last year, but they just sort of went, why will we risk it? Because the season's over. There's no point. There's no VFL. So couldn't build him up to it. So it's now or never. If he can't make it back to the to AFL standard, then he's going to retire. So it's a shame because he's about the closest to father-son that the Suns have got. He's got his dad. I keep talking about players' dads here, but this gives you an idea of the Gold Coast have got these sons of guns. His old man played 2 premierships for Southport, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So he's the local kid that they picked, the first local kid that they picked up, and he could have gone into the draft 2 years earlier, right? And he chose to be a son. So
it's nice to hear. Because it doesn't happen. It doesn't. He wants to be a local boy. That's credit to him, mate. Credit to him.
Dane Beams said no. Alex Keith said no. Josh Thomas.
Yep.
There's 2 or 3 others who played juniors for the Suns before they joined the comp, and they said no, we want to go into the draft.
It's silly, mate. Silly. Why would you?
You know,
You know what? Each to their own. Each to their own. And you know what? Their careers probably almost end up in the same spot as his, because at the moment, no, I don't think any of them got flags. But Beams did. I will take that back. But outside of that,
too.
Yeah, very lucky one too, yeah. Hey, quickly, rightio, I have to ask you, we're putting the nuts on the chopping board now, Tommy, because we have to ask you these questions. The first one is, who's the Premier for 2022? Who can you see taking out the big one?
Look, I'm not pissing in your pocket. It's Melbourne. Weird how AFL for so long didn't have any back-to-back. You know, you had Brisbane back-to-back, and then you had to wait for Hawthorn, and then Richmond's, and it just seems like the Melbourne's going up.
Yep.
The Bulldogs will be thereabouts.
Yep.
But Geelong, Richmond, Collingwood and West Coast have already fallen off. Port's not getting any younger. They could lose, you know, so if they had an injury to someone like Ollie Wines, it's good night.
Yeah, they're teetering. They're almost, if they all fire, fantastic, but they can't get their teams on the park. They can't get Marshall's out, then Rosie's out, and then Wines might happen, then Boak might. Yeah, it's just a Fantasia can't get on the park. If Dixon doesn't kick goals, who's going to kick them? It's all over the place. Brownlow medalist?
Yeah, this is a tough one because you look at a team like Melbourne and there's probably 3 or 4 blokes getting votes. So it's that old thing of they're knocking each other out.
Yep.
And so you tend to sort of look at the teams who are less likely to get lots of votes, but there's only one bloke. I'm gonna say Tuke Miller because he did really well. He did really well in all the other, like the coaches' votes and the Players Association, all that kind of stuff. And he just got suspended and then he stopped getting votes after that.
And he didn't win enough games. But when he polls well, sorry, other way around. When you win, he polls well.
Yeah.
If you can pinch a couple extra, if you can pinch another 3 or 4 games this year, that's an extra potential 12 votes. That puts him to 29 based off last year. And that's got you in the ballpark. Because I don't think you're going to have another season where you have 4 players poll 30 votes. I don't think it's going to happen again.
No.
What about the Coleman medalist?
I mean, that's the funny thing.
Oh, sorry. Just dropped there for a sec. Sorry.
Well, that's the funny thing. You know, the Brownlow and the Coleman, you could have one year, you have to lots and lots of votes for the next year. Mackay, whatever it is, I think he's too injury prone. I mean, didn't even play every game last year, and he still won. I'm going to say I don't know if anyone else has chosen him, but yeah, he's ready for a breakout. But 50 goals could win it.
Isn't that interesting that 50 goals wins a Coleman these days? Like, I remember when David Neitz won it with 80, and it was like, whoa, the first player to ever kick under 100 goals to win the Coleman.
Yeah.
And now it's, if anyone kicks 80, my goodness gracious, it's out of control. But that's the way that they play now. It's more about a spread rather than the individual itself. But I'll tell you what, Tom, I will let you know that there has not been one individual who has just given his time like you have. You are the ultimate professional. You are the encyclopedia Suns Tanica when it comes to the Gold Coast Suns. And I'm bullish on them. Finals, not too sure, but I'm not putting them in the bottom half of the bottom 8. There are too many other teams on the slide, and you're on the grow. So I reckon it is going to be shining very much, and I wouldn't be surprised if I see Rhonda and Katut sitting on the boundary line with a flag going, go Took and go Ranky, because I reckon you've got something shining. So on behalf of all the listeners, thank you very, very much, Concer. But I have one question, and I just have one more question just to finish this conversation, and it is simply this. Mr. Thom Roker, the season previewer for the 2022 Gold Coast Suns, how do you, kind sir, want your footy?
Well, I buggered this up last year, and I heard a couple of other blokes bugger it up last week on your show. But then I went and watched Ace Ventura again, and the Miami Dolphins kicker. The laces were in. Lace out.
It is lace out. It is lace out. Mate, you are an absolute star. Like I said, listeners, there's your 2022 season preview for the Gold. The future's bright, and you've heard it from the great man himself. Have a great night, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about your mob throughout. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Place Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Place Out.